And you are taking a live look over Ukraine's capital city of Kyiv right now. It is currently about 9 a.m. there as reports of explosions that have gone on there and in the city of Kharkiv. We are starting tonight with that breaking news. NATO officials say a Russian attack on Ukraine is now underway. Good evening and thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News at 11 tonight. I'm Mark Hanrahan. This coming just minutes after Vladimir Putin announced a special military operation in eastern Ukraine. In a televised address this morning in Russia, Putin warned that if other countries attempt to interfere, Russia will respond with, quote, consequences they have never seen, unquote. Meantime, President Joe Biden is reacting on Twitter tonight saying, quote, Russia alone is responsible for the death and destruction this attack will bring. He went on to say the world will hold Russia accountable. Meantime, tonight, Ukraine says a full-scale invasion by Russia is underway. CBS News correspondent Deborah Alfarone is at the White House tonight with the breaking developments.
Russian President Vladimir Putin announced in a televised address he has ordered a military operation in eastern Ukraine. He said there's no goal to occupy Russia's neighbor, but he warned if other countries attempt to interfere, there will be consequences they have never seen.
That sounded like a fighter jet overhead.
CBS News correspondent Charlie D'Agata is in Kyiv, one of two eastern Ukrainian cities where explosions were heard overnight. Smoke was seen rising in Kharkiv. A 30-day state of emergency went into effect Tuesday night in Ukraine. Military reservists were called up.
Результат – тишина.
Ukraine's president appealed for peace in an emotional late-night address and said he had tried to call Putin, but the result was silence. Police and security officers were sent to areas of eastern Ukraine that may be targeted. The UN Security Council gathered again Wednesday night for an emergency meeting.
The United States and our allies and partners will continue to respond to Russia's actions with unity, with clarity, and with conviction.
Satellite images show many Russian troops are within 10 miles of the Ukrainian border. Up to 190,000 of them are deployed, most in attack positions. The U.S. imposed more sanctions. There are options left now that Russia has announced a military operation. But the White House says it's important not to target certain sectors, which may end up hurting Americans.
What we're trying to minimize is what impact there's going to be on the United States and global markets in a lot of ways.
Putin also said he's intending to protect citizens. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, the White House.
3 to begin with. That sounded like a fighter jet overhead.
During a CBS News special report when correspondent Charlie D'Agata was reporting, fighter jets flew past coming into the city of Kyiv. He heard 5 loud explosions, 3 to begin with, followed by 2 more. Now this happened at around 7:15 our time tonight and 5:15 a.m. their time. We want to take a moment now and break down some of the key events leading up to these attacks. The tension is starting to rise at the beginning of December as Russian troops started to build up on the Russia-Ukraine border as a sign that Russia could invade. Repeatedly, Putin denied his intentions of invading Ukraine. NATO allies, including the U.S., started deploying military troops to countries outside of Ukraine in the scenario the Russians did move in to the Ukraine across the border. Now, since yesterday, Russia violated international law by sending troops into what Putin classified as 2 independent territories. President Joe Biden also created tough sanctions on Russia and cutting off their government from Western finance. At this point, 150,000 Russian troops had gathered at the border.
We're implementing full blocking sanctions on 2 large Russian financial institutions. We've cut off Russia's government from Western financing.
That was President Biden yesterday addressing the sanctions imposed not just by him, but by other countries in the European Union. Germany announced it will halt the $11 billion Nord Stream 2 pipeline that would have moved natural gas from Russia to Germany. To further bolster NATO's eastern flank, President Biden says he has authorized additional movements of U.S. forces and equipment to Baltic allies. President Biden announcing tonight on Twitter that he will be meeting with leaders of the G7 and allies to impose what he is calling severe sanctions. Meantime, members of Washington's congressional delegation are reacting to the attack on Ukraine tonight. Washington Senator Patty Murray tweeted, "The Ukrainian people are being plunged into a deadly and devastating war because of the cruel ambition of one dictator. This conflict is totally fabricated, but its human toll will be very real." She continues, "The democracies of the world must stand united with Ukraine and hold Putin accountable." Representative Dan Newhouse, who represents the state's 4th district, also took to Twitter tonight, writing, "I stand with the people of Ukraine as they defend themselves against Putin's relentless aggression. President Biden must answer the call to protect our freedoms by standing up to Putin, immediately leveling severe sanctions against Russia, and standing with our NATO allies." Now, this is a rapidly developing situation, and our team is working around the clock to get you the very latest. So make sure to watch Up with Krem starting at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning for the latest developments out of Ukraine. Turning to local news tonight, Kootenai County Sheriff Robert Norris says the city of Hayden needs to invest in more deputies. He brought those concerns to a town hall meeting tonight and said people and property there are at risk. Krem 2's Kyle Simchuk reports from North Idaho tonight.
Sheriff Robert Norris made it clear the current law enforcement situation in Hayden is not sustainable. Right now, there's only 3 full-time deputies assigned to the city, roughly 1 per shift. Norris says not only does that put citizens at risk, but also deputies themselves. When there's a serious emergency in Hayden, Idaho, Kootenai County deputies get pulled in from all corners of the county to assist. That was the case February 6th when a man barricaded himself inside a home and lit it on fire. A SWAT standoff lasted for several hours.
This was not a good person that decided to come live in the city of Hayden.
More people are moving to Hayden, and that's resulted in more 911 calls for service.
Truly called to call. I remember there was a whole month I didn't even make a traffic stop. I was so busy just going call to call.
Deputy Tanner Cox is one of just 3 full-time deputies assigned to Hayden, and the only one during his shift. Most days he doesn't have much time to follow up on shoplifting cases or patrol for DUIs. Plus, backup is not always that close by.
I have to wait for a county deputy to come, which could be coming from State Line, Athol, Worley, or even Harrison. So it could be a good anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes.
Sheriff Robert Norris says the city of Hayden spends just 6% of its budget on law enforcement. Other towns like Rathdrum, Post Falls, and Coeur d'Alene spend anywhere from 20 to 40%. Hayden has roughly 1 deputy for every 5,000 residents.
I mean, we've created an unsafe situation, not only for those of us that live here, but those that are protecting us.
Those facts were presented at tonight's town hall. Sheriff Norris believes the city needs to invest at least $1.8 million to have 24 full-time deputies. Residents have failed to pass 2 public safety levies in recent years.
I think we're doing a better job of getting out and educating the public on how bad the city of Hayden truly has it. And how much better their law enforcement services could be if they were to allocate the funds for it.
In Hayden, Kyle Simchuk, KREM 2 News.
All right, let's take a quick break from the headlines and talk weather because we saw frigid temperatures once again today. Let's get straight out to meteorologist Thomas Patrick. Once again, braving the cold in the Outdoor Weather Center. Thomas, last night at this time, I think it was 9 degrees. Tonight it's 18, so at least that's an improvement.
Yeah, that very much is. Also, it's not quite as windy out here for tonight, and that's making a big difference as I stand out here reporting to you as of this 11 o'clock hour. But a few light flurries kind of around the Spokane area. Haven't seen anything yet from our South Hills studios, but radar is showing some very light activity from about Deer Park and northward. And as you look to the south towards the Palouse and areas along the I-90 corridor out towards Moses Lake, looks like, again, very light snow. It's like the lightest shade our radar can plot. So it would be pretty much just flurries at most. And we haven't really seen any kind of accumulations as of yet. But this activity going to continue through about 5, maybe 6 o'clock in the morning for tomorrow. And then it is gone. So not expecting much accumulations, if anything at all. But the cold weather still going to stick around for a few more days. We're only in the 20s for highs tomorrow, but a big warm up is in store later on come next week. So look for that in your full forecast in a few minutes. But for now, we'll be right back after the break.